This is Story Run, a story by Mikey, The Vault of the North. Episode 6, The Watchers. The bell did not ring twice. It rang once, and someone heard it. Rain had followed Tony Reyes home. He came back to Acton with a backpack full of problems, a map that acted like it had a pulse, and a body that felt slightly different. Not superhero, not powered up, just stronger, sharper, like someone had adjusted him without asking. He did one thing he promised himself he would not do. He used the fraction that the vault had left inside him, a lucky lottery ticket, an investment that hit at the perfect time. Bills paid, debts erased, a flat bought. His mother finally sleeping, like she wasn't fighting the world every day. But money did not make him invisible. It made him loud. Ruth and Callum, the two people who had dragged him out of Scotland and back into the real world, warned him that every lucky tilt was a signal, a ripple, a bell. Tony started getting headaches, nose bleeds, pressure behind the eyes, like the vault network was trying to correct him. Then Ruth called, voice tight with urgency. Wales is getting worse, she said. The fracture on your map. It's widening. We will need you. Soon. After the call, Tony sat in his dark new bedroom, the rain tapping the glass in steady patterns. He unfolded the map. The Welsh fracture was darker than before. A thin crack along the coast, like a wound that refused to close. And Tony realized something that made his stomach feel cold. The vaults weren't waiting for him to be ready. They were moving without him. And if something broke in Wales, it would not stay in Wales. Not in a system that was connected. Not in a network that remembered. Tony locked his phone, pushed the money out of his mind, and stared at the map until his eyes stung. He did not unfold it again. He already knew what was on it. The Welsh fracture. Darker, wider, patient, like something that had learned to wait. Tony set the map on the bedside table and lay back on the bed. The ceiling of his new room was clean, white, unmarked. No water stain, shaped like a question mark. His old room in Acton had one. He had stared at it for years. It looked different, depending on the light. Some nights, it looked like an eye. Some nights, like an open hand. This ceiling had nothing, just white. Just the new flat that the luck had bought. Just the silence his mother was finally sleeping through in the next room. Tony closed his eyes. The consequence inside his chest shifted once. Quiet, cold, patient as stone. He recognized the feeling by now. Not pain, not a warning exactly. Just wait. The weight of something unfinished pressing against the inside of his ribs. The money was not the test. He understood that now. He had always understood it. He just hadn't wanted to say it out loud. The rain tapped the glass. Steady, even, patient. Tony listened to it until it stopped sounding like rain. Until it started sounding like someone counting. He slept. He did not sleep well. Sometime before dawn, the map shifted on the table. Not far, just enough to catch the gray light coming under the curtain edge. Tony did not wake for that. He had learned, somewhere between Scotland and London, that the map moved when it wanted. That fighting it was like arguing with weather. What woke him was something else. A feeling, not the consequence. Not the vault's cold pressure behind his eyes. Just the quiet, animal certainty that the flat felt different than it had the night before, like something outside had moved closer while he slept, like the distance between him and the rest of the world had shrunk. Tony lay still for a moment, eyes open, listening. Maria's room was quiet. The street outside was gray with early light and the sound of a bus 2 roads over. Everything was ordinary. Everything was fine. And then it wasn't. This is where episode 6 begins. Someone was knocking on Tony's new front door. Not a friendly knock, not a neighbor knock. This was a knock that assumed it would be answered. 3 hits, evenly spaced. Tap, tap, tap. Tony froze in the hallway, one sock half on, his backpack open on the floor like he'd been robbed by his own life. Maria was in the kitchen, humming quietly as she packed a lunch for work. She had a shift at the cafe, then another late one at the care home. He had promised himself he would not let this new, better life become a new kind of danger. And then the knock came again. Tap, tap, tap. Maria called out, "Anthony, are you expecting someone?" "No," Tony said, and his voice came out too sharp. He moved to the peephole. A man stood on the other side of the door, mid-30s, nice coat, clean shoes, hair too neat for London rain. He smiled directly at the peephole, as if he knew Tony was there, as if he knew exactly where Tony's face would be. Tony went cold, because Tony had not made a sound, and yet the man smiled like he'd been invited. The man raised a small white envelope. He held it up at eye level, right where Tony could see. Then he spoke clearly, so his voice carried through the door. "Antonio Reyes." He said, "We need to talk about what you've been doing with your luck." Tony stepped back so fast his shoulder hit the wall. Maria's humming stopped. "Anthony?" She called. "Who is it?" Tony forced a breath in. His head throbbed, a warning ache. He did not answer the man. He did not open the door. Instead, he reached down and picked up his backpack with one hand. The map was inside. He could feel it in there, like a sleeping animal. He put a finger to his lips and looked toward the kitchen. Maria appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a tea towel. "What's going on?" Tony swallowed. "Go to your room," he whispered. Maria stared at him. "I'm not 5, Anthony." Another knock. Tap, tap, tap. The man outside spoke again, still polite. "You don't have to be afraid. We're not the acquirers." Tony's stomach flipped. Not the acquirers. That meant there were other people, other groups, other dangers in suits. Maria stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Anthony, who is that?" Tony's brain moved fast. Fast like it never used to. A pattern. The man knew his name. He knew about the luck. He knew about the acquirers. And he came to the new address. How? Tony's gaze flicked to the curtain. Across the street, a car sat parked too perfectly. Engine off. No one getting out. No one getting in. In the car's reflection, Tony saw a second face. Watching, not smiling. Tony's chest tightened. "Mum," he said, keeping his voice low, "get your phone." Now, Maria's face shifted. She saw it. Not the car. Not the man. She saw Tony. The look he wore when he came home late from the cemetery jobs. Years ago. Exhausted, angry, trying not to show fear. He had that look again. Maria nodded once. Fast. She turned and moved to the kitchen counter, where her phone was charging. Tony backed toward his bedroom. The man outside spoke again, more urgent now, less polite. Antonio, we can do this quietly. You don't want your mother involved. That was it. That was the line. Tony's restraint snapped into motion. He grabbed the keys off the hook. Not the front door keys, the back exit keys. This building had a service corridor at the rear, a narrow passage that led to bins, pipes, and a gate that opened onto a side street. Tony had checked it the first day he moved in, because some habits never died. Because being poor taught you exits. He grabbed Maria's hand. Mom? Shoes? Maria looked down at her slippers. Then she looked back at Tony, eyes wide. Anthony, what is happening? Tony did not explain. Explaining took time. Time was a luxury. He pulled her toward the back door. The knock came again. Harder now. Tap, tap, tap. And then a sound Tony did not like. A soft, metallic click, like something sliding into place, like a lock being tested. The man was not waiting anymore. He was starting. Tony shoved the back door open. Cold air slapped his face. The corridor smelled of damp concrete and rubbish bags. Maria's breath came sharp. Tony guided her. Fast, down the narrow passage. Behind them, the front door rattled once. Not kicked. Not smashed. Just handled by someone who knew. Locks. Tony's heart hammered. They reached the gate. It was padlocked. Of course it was. Because of course, London put a lock on everything. Tony's hands shook as he fumbled for the key. The headache behind his eyes spiked. A dark pressure, like the vault network saying, don't use it. Tony clenched his jaw. He did not want to use it. But the lock was between his mother and a man who knew his name. He touched the key to the lock, and the lock opened like it had been waiting. No resistance, no sticking, no fight. Fortune, a tiny bend, a tiny ripple. Tony hated it, but the gate swung open, and they spilled into the side street. The rain hit them. Cars hissed past. People walked with umbrellas. Normal life kept going. That was the worst part. Danger could hide inside normal. Tony looked left, right. He pulled Maria toward the corner, and that's when he saw them. Two figures down the street, moving toward them. Not running, walking, like they owned the pavement, like they knew Tony would turn this way. Both wore dark clothes. Both had their hands in their pockets. Both looked ordinary. But Tony felt something tighten in his chest. Not the map, not luck. Instinct. The animal part of him that knew when he was being hunted. Every muscle told him, those two are not normal. Maria whispered, Anthony, are those your friends? Tony almost laughed. Friends. That word had never felt so expensive. He yanked Maria toward a row of parked cars and crouched beside a delivery van. Stay low, he said. Maria crouched. Her breathing was fast, but controlled. Tony realized with a strange jolt that his mother had lived a life too. A hard one. She knew how to survive. The two figures slowed. They did not look around wildly. They did not search. They simply walked past the van, close enough that Tony could see their faces through the rain. A woman, early 20s, hair tucked under a beanie, eyes sharp and focused. A man, older, maybe 40, with a tired face and hands that looked like they'd learned to be steady. They walked past. Then the woman spoke, casually, like she was commenting on the weather. "Antonio Reyes," she said. Tony's stomach dropped. They kept walking, but her voice carried, quiet and sure. "Don't go back inside. Don't go to the tube. Don't call the police." Tony blinked. "What?" the man beside her added, without turning his head. "Your door is already open." Maria's hand tightened on Tony's sleeve. "Anthony?" she breathed. "How do they know you?" Tony did not know, but he knew one thing. They were not here by accident. And then the front door of his building opened across the street. The man with the nice coat stepped out, rain on his shoulders, still smiling. He scanned the street like he was looking for a lost dog. His eyes landed exactly where Tony was crouched, and his smile widened. "Found you." Tony's mind screamed. Run. They ran, like the city was trying to swallow them. Tony pulled Maria down a side street, through puddles, past bins, past a takeaway shop that smelled like hot oil and onions. Maria's breath rasped. She was fast, but she was not 19. Tony glanced back. The nice coat man was walking, not running, still smiling. Behind him, the two ordinary figures had stopped. The beanie woman looked over her shoulder at the smiling man. Then she looked at Tony, and she did something that made Tony's brain stall. She stepped into the road. An oncoming car beeped, swerved, brakes squealing. The driver shouted. The woman lifted her hand, palm out. Not dramatic, not magic, just a signal. And the car stopped, not because of fear, because something in the air made the driver obey. Tony felt it. A pressure, like a rule being applied. The woman turned, and for the first time, her eyes met Tony's properly. "Keep moving," she said. Tony kept moving. Maria stumbled. Tony caught her elbow. They turned another corner and entered a small courtyard between buildings. A dead end. Tony spun, dragging Maria back. No exit, just brick walls, and a locked metal gate at the far end. The kind of place teenagers used to graffiti and adults used to avoid. Tony's head throbbed again. Harder. The map in his bag felt warmer, like it was waking, like it was noticing the trap. Maria's voice shook. "Anthony, why are we here?" Tony looked at the gate, padlocked. Again. Of course. He could use the lock again. He could bend the lock. But every bend rang a bell, and someone was already listening. Footsteps entered the courtyard behind them. Tony turned. The nice coat man stood there, rain dripping from his chin, still smiling. "Good," he said softly. "Good. This is better." He raised both hands. Peaceful. No crowd, no cameras. Tony's jaw clenched. "Who are you?" The man's smile did not change. "A watcher," he said. Tony's gut clenched. The word hit differently now, because Ruth had used it. Callum had used it. The map had made Tony feel watched since Scotland. Watcher was not a casual word. It was a job title. It was a threat. Maria stepped forward, shielding Tony without thinking. Leave my son alone, she said, voice shaking but strong. The man's eyes flicked to her. His smile softened. "Oh, Maria," he said like he was greeting an old friend. Maria froze. Tony felt something hot and ugly rise in his chest. "Don't say her name," the man sighed, almost regretful. "I don't want to harm you," he said. "Truly. But you've been making noise." "I didn't do anything." The man's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's the problem," he said. "You did something without understanding it." He stepped forward. Tony stepped back, pressing Maria behind him. The man continued, voice calm, almost kind. "You think the vault gave you luck as a gift. It didn't." Tony's breath shook. "It left you unfinished." Tony blinked. "What?" The man's smile sharpened. "And unfinished things attract attention." Behind the man, the courtyard entrance darkened. More figures appeared, not in suits, in hoodies, in coats, in ordinary clothes, but they moved together like a group, like a pack. Tony counted quickly. 5, no, 6, and then he saw it around their necks. Thin cords with small metal pieces hanging like pendants. Coins, old coins, worn, smooth, just like Ruth's. Tony's heart slammed. Keepers? But these people felt wrong. Their eyes were too hungry. Their posture too eager. They weren't standing back. They were leaning in. The nice coat man spoke, voice lowering. "The network is waking," he said. "The fracture is widening. The old doors are shaking. And you, Antonio Reyes, are a key that walks." Tony's mouth went dry. The group behind him murmured, like they were in a church. A soft chant. Not words Tony could understand, but he understood the feeling. "Worship," Maria whispered. "Anthony, what is this?" Tony shook his head. He did not know, but he knew it wasn't normal. The nice coat man lifted the envelope again. "It's an invitation," he said. "We want to meet you. Properly. The right way." Tony stared at the envelope. The paper looked harmless, like it contained a job offer, or a party invite, or a bill. But the man's eyes said, "Trap." "No." The nice coat man sighed again. "I hoped you'd be reasonable." Then the woman in the beanie stepped into the courtyard. Fast, silent. She appeared like she had been there the whole time. The older man came with her. They were not running, but they arrived like they had teleported. The nice coat man's smile slipped for the first time. His eyes narrowed. "Keepers," he said, voice colder now. Tony's brain snapped. Keepers. So these two were keepers. Not the coin-wearing group. Not the chanting pack. These two. The beanie woman looked at Tony, then at Maria, then back at Tony. Her face did not soften, but her voice turned practical. "Antonio," she said, "we're getting you out." Tony barked. "Who are you?" The older man answered, eyes on the coin-wearing group. "People who don't pray to doors." The chanting group shifted. One of them stepped forward. A man with a shaved head, eyes bright, grin too wide. He lifted his hands like he was presenting an altar. "Do not interfere," he said. "He is chosen." The beanie woman's eyes flashed. "He's a person," she snapped. The shaved head man laughed. "Same thing," he said, and that laugh made Tony want to throw up. Maria clutched Tony's arm. Tony's head throbbed again. Pressure, pain. The vault fraction inside him reacted to the tension like a nerve exposed to air. The older keeper man moved first. He reached into his pocket and flicked something small across the ground. A coin. It landed with a soft clink. Nothing dramatic happened, but the air changed. The rain in the courtyard seemed to hesitate. The chanting stopped. Half a beat, like someone had paused a song. The shaved headman's eyes darted to the coin. He took one step back. Tony stared. That coin was not just metal. It was authority, rule. The beanie woman grabbed Tony's backpack strap. "Move," she said. Tony hesitated. Maria was beside him. He could not leave her. He grabbed her hand. "We go together," he said. The beanie woman didn't argue. She just nodded once, like that was the only acceptable answer. Then she shoved Tony toward the locked gate at the far end of the courtyard. Tony stumbled. "Gates locked," he shouted. The older keeper man didn't look at the gate. He looked at the coin on the ground. Then he looked at the coin-wearing colt, and his voice dropped into something low and hard. "A rule for you," he said. The air tightened. The shaved head man flinched. The older keeper man pointed at the gate. "It opens," he said. Tony stared. The padlock clicked. The gate swung inward. Tony's mouth fell open. The beanie woman pushed him through. "Don't stare," she hissed. "Run." Tony ran. Maria ran. They burst out into an alley behind the courtyard. Wet, narrow, lined with bins. Tony looked back. The older keeper man stepped out last. He didn't run. He walked, calm, like the world would make space for him. Behind him, the coin-wearing colt surged forward, shouting now, the chant breaking into angry words. And the nice coat man followed. His smile gone completely. Tony's chest burned. They ran. They ran until Tony's lungs felt like sandpaper. Tony pulled Maria down back streets, cutting behind buildings, passing scaffolding, jumping puddles. Maria's breath became ragged. Tony tried to slow, to help her, but the beanie woman snapped. "Keep the pace. They'll herd you if you slow." Herd you. Tony hated that word because it sounded true. They reached a main road. Traffic, noise, people. For a second, Tony felt relief. Crowds meant safety. But then he remembered something Ruth said in Scotland. Visibility is noise. Noise can hide you, but it can also make you impossible to protect. The beanie woman pulled them into a corner shop, the kind that sold everything and nothing. A bell dinged as they entered. A man behind the counter glanced up, then looked away like he hadn't seen them at all. Tony realized, with a jolt, that the beanie woman had done something. Not to him, to the room. She had made Tony's group unimportant, forgettable, like background noise. She led them through a back door behind stacks of crisps. The older keeper man followed, closing it quietly. The back room smelled like cardboard and detergent. There was another door, and beyond it, a narrow stairwell leading down. Tony stared. "Where are we going?" The older keeper man finally looked at him. His eyes were tired, but not cruel. "Down," he said. Maria's voice trembled. "What is happening to my son?" The beanie woman answered without softness. "Your son rang a bell in a world that listens." Tony's jaw clenched. "Who are you?" The beanie woman hesitated, like she didn't enjoy names. "Layla," she said finally. The older man nodded at Tony. "Gareth?" Tony's mind snagged. Not Ruth. Not Callum. Different keepers. A different cell. A different shadow team. Tony noticed Layla had chalk dust on her fingers and a small piece of white chalk tucked behind her ear, like a pencil. Layla gestured down the stairs. "We have 30 seconds, she said. "Then they'll start searching entrances." Tony's mouth went dry. "Searching how?" Gareth's mouth tightened. "By patterns," he said. "By probability. By fear." Tony felt sick. They started down the stairs. It was darker below. The air changed from shop warm to underground cold. Tony's ears popped slightly. Maria whispered, "Anthony, I can't breathe down here." Tony squeezed her hand. "It's okay," he lied. Layla moved fast, like the dark didn't bother her. At the bottom, the stairwell opened into a maintenance corridor. Concrete, pipes, old wiring. Tony stared. What is this?" Gareth answered, "London is built on layers." Layla smirked slightly. "Tourist version," she said. "There's a real version too." Tony did not like that. Gareth moved to a metal door in the wall. No sign, no handle, just a seam in the concrete. He pressed his palm to it. For a second, nothing happened. Then the door sighed open, like it had been holding its breath. Tony's skin prickled. That wasn't a normal door. Layla looked at Tony, reading his face. "Not a vault," she said. "Keep moving." Sure, they moved through. The space beyond was not a corridor. It was a tunnel, wider, older, brickwork, blackened by time. A disused section of the underground. Tony's breath caught. He had ridden the tube all his life. He had never seen its skeleton. Maria's eyes widened. "This is under the city." Tony nodded, stunned. Layla moved ahead, checking the tunnel like she expected traps. Gareth stayed close behind Maria, not touching her, but ready. Pressure built behind Tony's eyes. The map in his bag warmed, not like danger, like recognition, as if it liked the underground, as if it understood hidden passages, as if it whispered, "This is my world." Tony hated that the map felt comfortable. He whispered to Layla, "Those people, the ones with the coins, who are they?" Layla's mouth twisted. "Not keepers," she said. "They steal our symbols and pretend it makes them righteous." Gareth added, "Vault cult." Maria's voice rose, shocked. "A cult? Like a church cult?" Layla's eyes flicked to Maria. "No," she said, "like a door cult. They don't worship God. They worship access." Layla stopped, just for a second. She checked the tunnel behind them. Clear. She kept moving. Tony matched her pace. And the man in the coat? Tony asked. Gareth's voice was flat. He finds people the network has touched, then sells them, acquires. The cult. Whoever pays more, Layla said. She checked behind without slowing. Tony's jaw worked. Why didn't you stop him before he came to my door? Layla shot him a look. Because you moved, she said. New flat, new bank, new patterns. You changed your life fast. Tony flinched. He had changed it. He had rung the bell. Water dripped somewhere ahead. The tunnel bent right. Layla gestured them forward, without looking back. Gareth looked at Tony's backpack. Is the map with you? Tony's grip tightened on the strap. Yes. Gareth exhaled once. Good, he said, and the word carried weight. Tony glared. Good for who? Layla answered. Sharp. Good for you. Because if they take it, you won't just be hunted. You'll be used. Tony said nothing. They moved deeper into the tunnel. The sound of the city faded. It became quieter. Tony's footsteps sounded too loud. Maria's shoes scraped. Layla signaled them to stop. She listened. Tony held his breath. Far behind them, faint echoes. Footsteps, not the tube, not trains. Human steps, more than one. Layla whispered. They found the shop. Gareth's face tightened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a coin. Not shiny, old, scarred, heavy. He didn't throw it. He just held it between finger and thumb like it mattered. Tony stared. Ruth has one like that, he whispered. Keeper coin, Gareth said. A key, but not for treasure, Layla corrected. A lock. Tony blinked. A lock? Layla looked at him like he was slow. We don't open, she said. We close. Or we stop openings from spreading. Tony's chest tightened. So Ruth and Callum really were part of this. Not random. Not helpers. Keepers. But why had they acted like Tony was a problem? Maybe because he was. Layla started moving again. Faster now. We need to get you to a safe line, she said. A safe line? Tony asked. A boundary, Gareth answered. A place the cult won't cross easily. Tony's mind jumped. Like the vault boundary. Like the door that breathed. Rules. Lines. Layla glanced at Tony. Don't overthink, she said. Just move. They moved. The tunnel bent left, then right, then opened into a wider chamber. An old platform. Signs on the wall were faded and half peeled. Tony squinted. The letters were barely readable, but he could make out part of a name. Raven. A forgotten station. Layla stopped at the edge. Here, she said. Tony stepped closer. The platform dropped down to tracks. Rusty rails. Loose gravel. A dark channel where the electric line used to be. Gareth pointed to a service ladder on the far side. We cross, he said. Maria's eyes widened. Cross what? Layla's tone turned urgent. The old power rail, she said. It's not supposed to be live, but the network does weird things down here. Don't touch metal unless we tell you. Maria swallowed hard. Tony's heart pounded. This was insane. But footsteps echoed closer behind. They had no choice. Layla went first. She jumped down from the platform, landed lightly, and moved across the tracks fast, stepping on the wooden sleepers like she was counting beats. Tony followed, holding Maria's hand. "Step where I step," Layla called, without looking back. Tony did. He placed his foot carefully. Sleepers were slick with damp. Maria's foot slipped once. Tony caught her. His new strength mattered. It actually mattered. He pulled her upright and kept moving. Then the rail fired. A white arc split the dark. It cracked across the far wall and left a char mark on the brick, close enough that Tony felt the heat against his cheek. Everyone froze. Maria pressed into Tony's side. Her hands were cold and gripping. The map in his backpack went hot. Not warm, hot. Layla had said the rail was not supposed to be live. She had said the network did weird things down here. The network was doing them now. Behind them, footsteps, many, getting louder. Layla, don't move. 3 seconds. 5. Tony counted his heartbeat. He kept it steady. By deciding to, that was the only way he knew how. The rail went dark. Dead. Maybe. Layla looked at Tony, not asking, transferring the decision. Tony looked at the far platform, at Maria, at the ladder, at the distance between them and safety. "Now," he said, quietly, not a question. They crossed. They reached the middle. Tony's head spiked with pain. He froze. The map in his backpack pulsed. Not a gentle warmth now. A warning, a pressure behind his eyes. He could hear footsteps behind them. Many, echoing off the tunnel walls. Too many. Layla snapped. "Move!" Tony moved. They reached the far side. Gareth climbed the ladder, pulled himself up, then reached down to help Maria. Maria climbed, trembling. Tony climbed last. As he pulled himself up, a figure appeared at the platform behind them. The nice coat man. His hair was wet now. His smile was gone. His eyes were bright with focus. He called down the tunnel, voice echoing, "You can't hide him forever." Layla turned and spat a word that felt like a curse. "Watch." Gareth stepped forward, coin in hand. He held it up. The nice coat man stopped. Not because he wanted to, because the air told him to. "You're out of your lane," Gareth said. The nice coat man's mouth twitched. "I'm in every lane," he said. "That's the point." Tony's stomach tightened. Layla grabbed Tony's shoulder. "Run," she said, and her grip was iron. They ran again. They burst out of the tunnel into daylight, through a hatch hidden behind a construction barrier. Tony blinked hard. The sun was weak. But after the dark, it felt like a spotlight. They were in a fenced-off area beside a rail line, near a cluster of warehouses. Maria sucked in air like she'd been drowning. Tony scanned around. No one nearby, just wind and distant traffic. Layla didn't stop. She jogged along the fence line to a gap, slipped through like she'd memorized it, and waved them after. Gareth followed with Maria. Tony went last. His head throbbed. His mouth tasted metallic. A nosebleed threatened again. He wiped under his nose and saw red. Maria saw it too. Her face went pale. Oh my God. Anthony, it's fine. Tony lied again. Layla glanced back. It's not fine, she said. But we don't have time. Tony snapped. Why are they after me? Layla didn't slow. Because you're a shortcut, she said. And people love shortcuts. Because you opened a vault and lived, Gareth added. That makes you rare. Tony's chest tightened. And you, he said. You're after me too, aren't you? You just want the map. Layla stopped so suddenly, Tony almost ran into her. She turned, eyes cold. No, she said. Tony swallowed. Then why? Layla stepped closer, and for the first time her voice dropped into something almost human. Because if they take you, she said, the fracture in Wales is going to become a tear. And if it becomes a tear, you won't just lose your life. Tony stared. What do I lose? Layla's eyes flicked to Maria, then back to Tony. You lose the city, she said. The words hit like a punch. This network is older than London, Gareth said. London is built on top of it. If that base cracks, it won't just hurt London. Tony's throat went dry. Maria whispered, What are you talking about? What network? Tony looked at his mother. How could he explain? A map under a grave, a door that breathed, a custodian that spoke in rules, coins that made air obey. It sounded like madness, but the blood on his lip was real. The fear in his gut was real, and the people chasing them were real. Layla pointed at Maria. She can't stay with us, she said. Tony's heart jumped. No. Gareth raised a hand quickly. Calm. Not what she means, he said. We can move her somewhere safe. But Tony, you can't drag your mother into every vault ripple. Tony's jaw clenched. I'm not leaving her. Layla's face softened by 0.5 millimeter. Then we adapt, she said. She glanced down the road. A bus stop. A line of cars. A normal world. Layla took out a phone. She tapped fast. Then she looked at Tony. Ruth is already moving, she said. Tony's stomach flipped. Ruth, Callum. So they were in contact. Layla pointed at Maria. You're going to hand her off, she said, to someone who can keep her safe without her seeing what you're doing. Tony's eyes narrowed. Like who? Layla's mouth tightened. A friend, she said. Tony didn't like the vague word, but footsteps echoed again. Far behind, through the hatch. They didn't have time. Layla grabbed Maria's hand gently. A different kind of grip than before. Mom, Tony said, voice shaking, please, just trust me? Maria stared at him. Then she nodded, once. The nod of a woman who had left a country for a better life, who had trusted buses and forms and strangers, who had trusted her son to carry adulthood too early. All right, she whispered, but you better come back to me. Tony's throat burned. I will, he said, and he meant it. They moved toward the bus stop. A double-decker pulled up like it had been timed. Tony hated that he noticed timing now. Layla pushed Maria onto the bus first, then Gareth. Tony stepped on last. Layla followed, scanning behind. They sat at the back. The bus moved. London slid past, like nothing was wrong. Tony watched through the rain-specked window. Behind them, Down the road, the nice coat man appeared again, walking fast now, face set. He wasn't smiling. He lifted his phone to his ear. He was calling someone. Tony's stomach sank. Layla leaned in, low voice. "He's escalating," she said. Tony whispered. To Eleanor, Layla's eyes flicked. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe not." The cult has their own buyers. Tony's breath caught. What does the cult want? They want a prophecy to be true, Gareth answered, voice flat. They want the vault to choose them. Tony exhaled hard. And they think I'm the path. Layla nodded. Keys don't get asked, she said. They get carried. Tony clenched his jaw. Not happening. The bus turned. They got off 3 stops later in a crowded area near a market. Layla guided them through people, like she knew the currents. She stopped at a small cafe with foggy windows. Inside, warm air and coffee smell. At a back table, someone waited. A familiar face. Callum. He stood as they entered. His eyes went straight to Tony, then to Maria, then back to Tony. His voice was quiet. Antonio? Tony's relief hit hard and unexpected. Not because Callum was comforting. Callum wasn't. But Callum was known. Known was better than unknown. Maria stared at Callum, confused. Who is this? Tony hesitated. A friend, he said. Maria's eyes narrowed. You don't have friends who chase you through tunnels. Today you do, Callum said. He was already scanning the cafe entrance. Layla moved to Callum. Ruth? She asked. Callum nodded. 2 minutes, he said. Then he looked at Maria. His posture softened, just slightly. Mrs. Reyes, he said. We need to move you. Maria's eyes widened. Move me where? Somewhere safe. Maria's voice rose. I'm not leaving, my son. Tony grabbed her hands. Mom, he whispered. Please, just for tonight. Just trust me. Maria's eyes filled. She looked between Tony and Callum and Layla and Gareth. Her world had cracked open in 15 minutes. She was doing her best not to fall through it. All right, she said, voice small, but I want answers. Tony nodded. You'll get them, he promised. He wasn't sure if it was true. A bell jingled at the cafe door. Ruth entered. Same coat, as always. Same eyes that looked like they were made for secrets. She didn't waste time. She went straight to Tony. She looked at his nose. The blood, the pale skin, the tight jaw. She said, You used it again. It was a lock, Tony said. I had to. Ruth cut him off. I know, she said. That was new. Ruth rarely said, I know like that. She looked at Maria. Her face changed just slightly into something gentler. Maria, she said. I'm sorry. Maria stared. Who are you? Maria demanded. Ruth held her gaze. A problem, Ruth said. And also a solution. Maria blinked. That makes no sense. Ruth nodded once. It will, she said. Then Ruth turned back to Tony. Her voice went sharp again. They brought the cult to your door, she said. That's a message. Tony's chest tightened. What message? Ruth answered. and her words hit hard. "They know where you sleep," she said. "Now we find out how." They split fast, like they'd done this 1,000 times. Callum took Maria and Gareth out the back exit of the cafe, toward a car Tony hadn't seen parked there. Layla stayed with Ruth and Tony. Ruth's eyes flicked to Tony's backpack. "You have the map?" she asked. Tony nodded. Ruth exhaled once. "Good," she said, "because they're not only after you now. They're after what you can lead them to." Tony's breath caught. "The fracture," he whispered. Ruth nodded. "Whales?" she said. "And something else." Tony frowned. "What else?" Ruth didn't answer immediately. Layla did. "The cult has a relic," she said. "Something that reacts to vault doors." Tony's pulse jumped. "A relic?" Layla nodded, eyes hard. "They call it the hymn," she said. "Not a song. A frequency, like a tuning fork. It makes sealed places vibrate." Tony's skin prickled. Ruth's voice went quieter. "If they use it near a fracture," she said, "they might tear it wider." Tony's mouth went dry. "So why are they chasing me instead of going to Wales?" Ruth's eyes held his. "Because you're an anchor," she said. "You're the safest bet. If you're present, the door responds." Tony's hands curled. "That's not fair." Ruth's expression didn't change. "No," she said. "It isn't." Layla checked her phone, then looked up. "They're moving," she said. Ruth nodded, already deciding. "We don't run forever," she said. "We cut their hands off the rope." Tony blinked. "What does that mean?" "We let them think they've caught you." "No." Ruth's eyes stayed steady. "You already are bait, Tony. I'm just giving us control of the hook." Tony's hands shook. His mother was gone in a car with strangers. His flat was compromised. His life was now a chase. And now Ruth wanted to hand him over on purpose. Tony felt anger rise. "Why should I trust you?" he snapped. Ruth's eyes flashed. "You shouldn't," she said. "Not yet." Tony froze. Ruth continued, voice tight. "But you should trust one thing." Tony waited. "What?" Ruth leaned closer. "We protect power by refusing to touch it," she said. "We don't want your map. We don't want your gift. We want the world to keep having doors that stay closed." Tony stared at her. Layla added, "Sharp. The cult wants a door that never closes," she said. "The acquirers want a door they can own. We want the door to keep asking questions." Tony's throat burned. "Then why do you keep showing up around me like I'm the problem?" Ruth's eyes softened. "Just a fraction." "Because you are," she said. "Not by choice, by design." Tony flinched. Ruth straightened. "We move," she said. Layla nodded. "Where?" Tony asked. "To the place they think you'll go," Ruth said. "Your money. They tracked you through banking, paperwork, contracts." Tony's jaw tightened. Money had made him traceable. "So we go where a scared rich person would go," Ruth said. "The bank. As bait, they left the cafe through the front like they were normal." Ruth walked beside Tony. Layla walked behind. Tony's skin prickled. Every reflection, every window, every parked car looked like surveillance. Not paranoia. Pattern recognition. The kind you develop when people have been chasing you all day. They walked to a small bank branch Ruth had chosen. Tony stepped inside. Warm air. Smell of carpet. Quiet voices. Ruth guided Tony to an ATM. Withdraw cash, she said. Tony did it. Hands shaking. The machine spat out notes. Ruth folded them into an envelope. Tony frowned. Why? Ruth nodded toward the glass doors. Outside, across the street, the nice coat man stood under an umbrella, watching. He was smiling again. Not warm, cold. He had found the pattern. Tony's stomach sank. Layla leaned in, whispering, "They're going to try a grab," she said. "But not here. Too many cameras. So we give them a place with fewer cameras," Ruth said. Ruth held up the envelope of cash. "Greed always picks the alley," she said. They left the bank. The nice coat man's gaze followed them like a laser dot. They cut through the market, weaving between stalls. Ruth led. Layla guarded the rear. Then Ruth turned into a narrow passage between buildings, a cut-through that smelled like damp brick and fried fish. Tony's chest tightened. Alley. They were doing it. Ruth walked halfway down, then stopped. She looked back at Tony. "Remember," she said, "do not use it." Tony swallowed. "I won't," he whispered. Layla's eyes narrowed. "You say that like a promise," she said. "Make it one." Tony nodded. Then the alley entrance behind them, filled with bodies. The coin-wearing cult. 10, at least. The shaved-head man in front, grinning. The nice coat man stepped behind them, like a leader stepping in front of his group. He lifted the white envelope again. "Antonio," he said. "See? This was easier." Tony's stomach flipped. Layla moved slightly in front of Tony, protective without admitting it. Ruth's posture didn't change. She looked at the cult like they were an annoying problem, not a terrifying one. The shaved head man smiled wider. "We only want to speak," he said. "We only want to show you the him." Tony's heart pounded. Him. The shaved head man reached into his hoodie pocket. He pulled out an object wrapped in cloth. He unfolded it slowly, like a magician revealing a trick. Inside was a shard of metal, not a knife, not a tool. Something older. It looked like a broken piece of a bell, inscribed with tiny markings. As the metal touched the air, Tony's backpack warmed like it was on fire. The map reacted. Tony's head exploded with pressure. He staggered. Maria's face flashed in his mind. Whale's fracture. Dark. Widening. Ruth's voice snapped through the pain. "Don't," she said. Tony clutched his bag. The shaved head man lifted the metal shard. The air vibrated. Not sound. Pressure. A hum you felt in your teeth. The cult's eyes lit up. They began to chant again. The nice coat man watched Tony's reaction with satisfaction. "See?" he whispered. "It knows. It knows you." Tony's vision blurred. The map burned against his back. It was reacting to something. Behind the brick walls. A sealed space. A locked place. A hidden door. Not a vault door, but something connected. The shard was waking it. The hymn was a tuning fork for hidden things. Layla swore under her breath. Ruth's eyes went cold. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her own coin. Ruth pressed her coin to the wall beside her. Ruth did not throw it. She pressed it to the wall beside her. The hum stuttered. The shard's vibration faltered. The cult's chanting broke. The shaved headman's grin vanished. Ruth's voice was low. "This is not your door," she said. The shaved headman snarled. "We have the hymn," he said. "We have the right." Ruth looked at him like he was dirt. "No," she said. "You have hunger. That's not a right. It's a sickness." The nice coatman's smile returned. "Thin, Ruth," he said, and Tony flinched. He knew her name too. You can't keep guarding old questions forever. Eventually someone answers. Answering wrong breaks the world, Ruth said. Layla whispered to Tony. "When Ruth says move, you move." Tony nodded. The shaved head man lifted the shard higher. The hum surged again. Tony felt the map in his bag strain toward it, like a magnet, like a pull. Tony's hands shook. He wanted to throw the map away, just to stop the pain. Ruth's voice snapped. "Move." Tony's eyes caught a seam in the alley wall. Dark frame, flush with the brick. He had learned to look for edges in Scotland. The vault had taught him that every wall had a question in it. "There," Tony said. He grabbed Layla's sleeve and pointed. She saw it instantly. Her hand went to the chalk behind her ear. Locked. Of course. Tony's hand moved toward his bag. The habit of luck. Old and automatic. He pulled his hand back. Layla shoved it. Locked. Tony's brain screamed. Use it. Use the lock. Open it. Tony clenched his jaw. No. Ruth's coin was still pressed to the wall. Layla's eyes flashed. "Sorry," she said. Then she did something Tony did not expect. She pulled the piece of chalk from behind her ear. She drew a quick line across the door frame. Not a symbol, just a line. Then she whispered something under her breath. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Tony stared. What was that? Layla shoved him through. A boundary. She snapped. Chalk marks a line. The network reads the line. Now move. They ran into darkness. A stairwell. Down. The cult surged after them. The hum followed, vibrating through brick. Tony's head pounded. Like a drum, Ruth came last. Still calm, coin in hand. She slammed the door behind them. The hum dampened. Not gone, but muted. Like someone had put a pillow over a speaker. They ran down the stairs into another underground space. A service corridor, again. But this one felt different. Older. Colder. Tony's map cooled, but it still pulsed. They were inside something hidden. And then Tony understood what the cult had done. They hadn't just chased him. They had used him. They had used his presence, his anchor, his map, to wake a door under the city. A door the keepers had been keeping quiet. A door that was not supposed to be noticed. Layla looked back at him, eyes blazing. "They're forcing openings," she said. "And London does not forgive forced openings," Ruth said. Her voice was tight, in a way Tony had not heard before. "What happens now?" Tony asked. Ruth looked at the darkness ahead, like she was listening to something older than them all. Then she said the worst sentence Tony had heard in weeks. "We close it," she said. And we do it before it becomes a vault problem. Tony's stomach dropped. Before it becomes a vault problem. Layla's smile was sharp and humorless. Because right now, she said, it's only a door. Tony's hands went numb. And if it becomes more, Ruth's eyes met Tony's. Then it starts asking questions, she said. And everyone who's hungry will show up to answer. The corridor widened into a chamber. Not a station, not a tunnel, a room, brick walls, a curved ceiling, old iron supports, and in the far wall, a door, not like the one in Scotland. No stone carvings, no breathing sound. This one looked almost normal. Wood, dark, ancient, but the air around it was wrong. It felt thicker, like standing beside deep water. Tony's map warmed again. The fracture line on the paper shifted. Not Wales. Here, a small shadow mark had appeared, right under London. Tony stared. This wasn't on the map. It wasn't awake, Ruth said. Layla laughed. Short and sharp. They woke it with your footprint, she said. That's their trick. Tony's breath shortened. The cult's chanting echoed behind them. Closer now. They were coming down the stairs. Ruth stepped toward the door. Tony grabbed her sleeve. No, he said. We can't open it. Ruth looked at his hand on her sleeve. Then at Tony. Her voice was flat. We're not opening it, she said. Tony blinked. How do you close a door you didn't open? Ruth answered. And her answer was sharp. You pay, she said. Tony's knees nearly buckled. Layla moved beside Ruth, eyes sharp. We don't have time for lessons, she said. They're coming. Tony heard it now. Footsteps, many. The hum of the hymn shard vibrating again. The air in the chamber trembled. The lights in the chamber flickered. Once, then again. Old bulbs on old wire. But they had been steady until this moment, until the shard entered the room. The door's surface shivered, like it wanted to respond. The ache behind Tony's eyes sharpened into something urgent. Ruth reached into her pocket, not for her coin, for something else. A small strip of cloth. She wrapped it around her palm. Then she placed that hand on the door. Tony held his breath. For a second, nothing happened. Then the door exhaled. Not a breath, a release. The air changed. A low sound, like a far-off cello note. The door was listening. Ruth opened her eyes. She looked at Tony. Do not touch it, she said. Tony nodded hard. Ruth spoke to the door, voice calm. By restraint, she said quietly. By refusal. By the keeping of what is not ours. Layla glanced at Tony. Not magic. Rules. The door's sound deepened. The cult's chanting slammed into the chamber as they burst into the corridor behind. The shaved head man appeared first, grinning. Himshard held high. The nice coat man stood behind him, eyes bright with victory. Ah, he said, voice pleased. There it is. Tony's skin prickled. The cult had wanted this door. They had known it existed. They had used Tony to wake it. The shaved head man stepped forward, Himshard humming. The door's note rose in response. Tony's map in his bag pulled toward the shard again, like a tug of war in his spine. Tony felt it. Not just the pull, the reason for it. His presence was the connection. Him standing close to the door was why the shard could reach it at all. He was the bridge. Tony stepped back. 2 steps. 3. As far as the chamber allowed. He pressed himself against the opposite wall. The pull in the map weakened. The cord between him and the shard stretched thin. The door's note faltered. 1 beat. 2. Ruth heard it. Her eyes found Tony across the chamber. 1 second of understanding passed between them. She pressed harder against the door and spoke louder. Ruth didn't move. She kept her hand on the door. Layla stepped in front of Tony. Gareth was not with them. Callum was not with them. It was just Ruth and Layla and Tony against a cult. And a recruiter. And a door that had started to listen. The shaved head man sang out. Voice loud now. Triumphant. Open, he said. The door shivered. Tony felt the air tighten. Layla hissed. They're trying to force a command. Ruth's voice stayed calm. This is not your door. She repeated, louder now. The nice coat man laughed softly. Doors don't belong to anyone, he said. They belong to the one who can answer. Tony's stomach twisted. Answer. The vaults asked questions. The door was starting. Ruth's eyes flashed. She lifted her coin. She held it up like a judge holding a verdict. Then she did something that made Tony's heart stop. She pressed the coin to her own wrist. Hard. The metal bit into skin. A thin line of blood appeared. Tony's mouth fell open. Ruth didn't flinch. She pressed her bleeding wrist against the door, and she said, voice sharp now, like a rule being nailed in place, not by hunger. The air snapped. The door's note cut off like a string severed. The hum from the hymn shard stuttered. The shaved headman staggered, shock on his face. The cult's chanting broke into angry shouting. Tony stared at Ruth's wrist. Blood. A seal. Like Tony's thumb. Like authority. But Ruth had done it willingly, Layla whispered. Almost respectful. Blood seal. She said, old keeper lock. Tony's throat burned. Ruth's voice dropped again, controlled. It's sealed, she said. Ruth looked at her coin. She turned it once, checking something Tony could not read. A marking on the edge. He had not noticed it before. It looked different to the others. Older, thinner, like it had been added by a different hand. She pocketed it without comment. Tony filed that away. The keepers had their own silences, their own things they did not explain. He was starting to wonder how many levels there were above them. The nice coat man's face tightened. That's expensive, he said. Ruth's eyes met his. Not as expensive as letting you in, she said. The shaved headman screamed, rage replacing worship. He lunged, not at Ruth, at Tony. His hands found the backpack strap and pulled. Tony felt the strap go taut. He planted his feet, both hands on the pack. He did not reach for luck. He did not bend anything. He just held. The shaved headman was stronger than he looked. Tony felt himself pulled forward. 1 step, 2, toward the cult, toward the shard on the floor, toward the door that was still sealed but still listening. He was going to lose it. Then Layla hit the shaved head man from the side. Not a shove, a full body collision. Shoulder into his ribs. The kind of hit that came from someone who had done it before and did not enjoy doing it, but was willing to. The strap released. Tony lurched backward. Map safe. The hymn shard left the shaved headman's hand. As he staggered, it skidded across stone and stopped against the far wall. Out of reach. Layla was already moving. She found the loose pipe bracket on the wall and drove her boot heel into it. It crashed down between them and the cult, spraying sparks as it hit an old junction box. The chamber filled with the smell of burning wire. Lights flickered. The cult hesitated, suddenly human, suddenly afraid of electricity. Ruth did not wait for Tony to respond. She found his elbow in the dark and pulled. Tony pulled back. They ran to the side of the chamber, where a service door stood half hidden behind a stack of old crates. Layla slammed it open. They shoved through. Behind them, the cult shouted and scrambled around the fallen pipe. The nice coat man didn't scramble. He watched. His eyes locked on Tony, and he mouthed a sentence Tony couldn't hear, but understood anyway. "We'll see you again." They ran down another corridor, upstairs, out through another hatch, back into the city. Harder rain, the kind that meant the city was angry, cold, and real. Not the mild London drizzle Tony had grown up with. Heavy, cold, like the city above had been disturbed by what happened beneath it. Tony pressed the back of his hand to his nose. More blood. Not much, but steady. Tony's lungs burned. Ruth's wrist bled down her hand. Layla's breath was steady. They reached a quiet street behind shops. Ruth finally stopped. Tony stared at her wrist. "Why did you do that?" he demanded. Ruth looked at him, eyes tired. "Because you wouldn't," she said. Tony flinched. Ruth continued, voice low. "You're being tested," she said. "Every time you use blood and intent, the vaults record it. They measure." Tony swallowed. "And you?" Ruth looked away for half a second. "I'm not being tested," she said. "I'm already judged." The words landed heavy. Layla looked at Tony. "You wanted to know why you should trust us," she said. Tony nodded, breath shaking. Layla pointed at Ruth's bleeding wrist. "Because she just paid a price," she said, "to close a door she didn't open. And she didn't take anything from it." Tony stared. Ruth wiped the blood on her coat sleeve like it was nothing. Then she looked at Tony, voice sharp again. "This is what we do," she said. "We stop hunger from becoming law." Tony could not speak. The city around them kept moving. People walked past with umbrellas. A couple laughed. A dog barked. A bus hissed by. No one knew there had been a door under London that almost woke into something worse. No one knew a cult had tried to sing it open. No one knew Tony Reyes was standing in the rain with a map that made him a key. And that was the point. Ruth looked at Tony. "You're not safe," she said. "Not in London. Not anywhere." Tony's voice cracked. "What do I do?" "You learn," Ruth said. Layla added, not unkindly, "and stop bending luck. You're loud." Tony almost laughed, and it came out broken. "Yeah," he said. "I noticed." Ruth's phone buzzed. She checked it. Callum's name on the screen. She answered. Where? She asked. A pause. Then her face tightened. Tony's stomach sank. What? He demanded. Ruth looked at Tony. Your mother's car is being followed, she said. Tony stopped breathing. Layla swore. Gareth's plan was compromised. Callum's route was compromised. The recruiter was faster than they thought. Ruth's voice went hard. We go now, she said. Tony's hands shook. Mom, he whispered. Ruth grabbed Tony's shoulder. Stay with me, she said. I'm staying, he said. They ran again. And as they ran, Tony felt something shift inside him. Not luck, not strength, something else. A realization. The keepers were not heroes in capes. They were people who bled to keep doors closed. They were allies, disguised as threats, and trusting them might be the most dangerous thing he'd ever do. Because trust meant you could be hurt. Trust meant you could be used. Trust was a door too, and Tony had never been good at opening doors. They reached the rendezvous at a petrol station near a busy road. Lights bright, cameras everywhere. Callum stood beside a car. Gareth was inside, driving. Maria sat in the back seat, face pale, eyes wide. Tony ran to the window. Mom. Maria leaned forward, tears spilling. Anthony, what is happening? They said you were in danger? They said. Tony swallowed. Are you okay? He asked. Maria nodded, frantic. I'm okay, she whispered. But there's a man in a coat. He keeps showing up behind us. Tony went still. The recruiter, Ruth, scanned the road. Layla's eyes were sharp, searching reflections. Callum spoke. Low. He's close, he said. Gareth nodded, hands tight on the wheel. We can't keep Maria in motion, Gareth said. They'll trace the pattern. Ruth looked at Tony. Her voice was quiet, but the words were heavy. We need to remove her from the board, she said. Tony flinched. Maria heard the tone, even if she didn't catch the words. I'm not a board, Maria snapped, suddenly furious. I'm his mother. Ruth turned to her, and something softened in Ruth's eyes. Again. I know, Ruth said. That's why we're trying to keep you alive. Maria's lips trembled. Tony's chest tightened. He hated this. He hated that his mother was now a piece in a game. He hated that a door under London had nearly woken because of him. He hated that Wales was still cracking. Callum opened the car door for Maria. Mrs. Reyes, he said, we're taking you somewhere calm, somewhere crowded, somewhere you can be normal. Maria stared at Tony. You're not coming. She whispered. Tony's throat burned. I have to, he said. I have to fix something. Maria shook her head. You're 19, she said. You're not a soldier. Tony almost laughed. My dad was, he whispered, and the words surprised him. He didn't talk about his dad much, but the thought hit him hard. Royal Marines, died overseas. A man who went into danger because it was his job. Tony wasn't a soldier, but maybe he was becoming something else. Maria grabbed Tony's face with both hands. Her fingers were cold from the rain. You come back to me, she said fiercely. You hear me? You come back. Tony nodded, eyes burning. I will, he said. Maria pulled him into a hug so tight it hurt. Then she got into the car. Callum shut the door. Gareth drove off. Maria disappeared into traffic. Tony stood in the petrol station light, feeling like his chest had been hollowed out. Ruth stepped beside him. You did the right thing, she said quietly. I don't know what the right thing is anymore, he admitted. The right thing is usually the harder one, Ruth said. Layla checked her phone. He's still close, she said. Recruiter. Callum's jaw tightened. We can't stay in London, he said. Tony blinked. What? Ruth nodded. We leave tonight, she said. Tony's stomach dropped. Leave? Where? Ruth's eyes met his. Wales, she said. Tony stared at her. We're going to Wales now. The fracture is widening, Ruth said. And the cult has the hymn. They're going to try to use you again. I don't want to be used. Then don't be, Ruth said. Choose where you stand. Tony looked down at his backpack, at the map inside, at the dark line along the Welsh coast, at the little shadow mark under London that had appeared and been sealed. Tony realized something else, too. The vault network was not only in hills and caves. It was under cities, under streets, under people's lives. And Tony was now part of it. He looked up. All right, he said. Tony gave a broken half-smile. I'll save the complaints for Wales. Callum said nothing. He was watching the road. Ruth looked at Tony. Her voice was quiet, almost a warning. Listen, she said, carefully. Tony nodded. Allies can look like threats, Ruth said. And threats can look like invitations, he said. Ruth's eyes held his. Yes, she said. Layla pointed toward the road. Car, she said. A black car rolled past the petrol station, slowly. Tinted windows. Engine quiet. Tony's heart slammed. Tinted windows. No way to see inside. But the car slowed at exactly the wrong moment. The recruiter, or Eleanor's people, or both. The car did not stop. It kept rolling, like a shark circling. Ruth's voice dropped. They're watching, she said. Tony's head throbbed. He did not need supernatural senses to know the truth. The watchers were everywhere. Not just the keepers. Not just the cult. Not just the acquirers. Something older. Something that had been watching before there were vaults to watch. And Tony was standing in the middle of it. Ruth turned and started walking. Come on, she said. We move before they decide to bite. Tony followed, backpack tight, rain cold, London loud, and somewhere far to the west, Wales cracked in the dark. This is Story Run. The vaults do not open for the ready. They open for the necessary. And the run continues.